Good afternoon. 4:44, March 14th, 2026. I want to take a few minutes and recount the situations that led me to leave Metropolitan Water Reclamation District. Many of you may not be familiar with the engineering field, and frankly, I'm not really that much either. But I think it's important to bring everything to kind of a convergence point uh, and explain why I'm in this particular situation that a person like me really should not be in. Now, uh, after the passing of my mother, Professor Rani Mathai, given name Sarah Mathai, July 19th, 2023, many things in my life changed very quickly. I was pretty much focusing on reestablishing myself in Illinois at my parents' house in Gilbert's and building Texas Movement International, not just in the performance division that I had been doing since 2015, but building something new via Hero by Texas Movement. As you can see, kind of a track and field focused athletic apparel division and footwear division. So that did scale even after my mother's passing, but we were kind of intending on doing it together. Um, and she was my primary financial support in that as I was reestablishing myself in Illinois. When she passed, however, my father thought it would be more prudent for me to pursue more traditional sources of income. And through a church connection that we had, I was told about the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District. And in order to keep the peace in my own home, as you know, I'm the son of first generation Indian immigrants. Um, the smoothest possible life you can live is if you go by their career recommendations, which is usually medicine or engineering or something of that sort. Gives them, a lot of ease when they're having conversations with their peers, and it gives you enough income for you to just stack up for yourself and not have to ask them for money, which is the greatest crime you can commit in some Indian households. So, in the interest of peace, as always, I applied for a position as a civil engineering tech first. That was my only desire. So I took the exam for that in early mid 2024. Um, Signed up for the test at the end of 2023, and immediately dealt with a brake failure accident just after that, just a few days after that, which was very confusing. But I took the civil engineering Tech 4 exam, passed it with something like a 85 or 86%. Um, you know, basic basic math that an engineering tech would need, and that's about the position that I'm qualified for. However, because I obtained an EIT license when I took the FE exam in Texas in 2012, I was bumped up to what they call assistant civil engineer. So they gave me a passing score of 95 because of my experience in engineering firms in the Fort Worth area, as well as me passing the FE, which was fine. Um, so I started the position with good faith, as I always do, in Schaumburg, starting by living in Gilbert's. And the MWRD requires that you live in Cook County. Now, Gilbert's is in Kane County. However, you have 18 months to relocate, and the first year of that position is probation. So I was under the impression that I could at least have a year to stack checks up and build up my income while commuting a little further, but still saving up that liquidity for myself so that I could, continue to, just build my own foundation. All this was while I was working at Premier Fitness Solutions 2 days a week, working with both individual clients and teaching classes, group classes between 6 to 10 people over an hour session. So I was maintaining Texas Movement Performance at Premier Fitness Solutions, and I was also simultaneously working at Metropolitan Water Reclamation District from 7 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. Monday through Friday. So it was intense, but it was manageable as long as I had a place to stay. Um, I got the job October 10th, 2024, and by December, my dad was telling me that I needed to find my own place. Now, in Illinois, it's very difficult to find your own place for anything less than $1,500 a month, which eats half of your paycheck. And also, there was no rush to do that. He was just in a rush to sell the property and get that liquidity for himself. Which I'm not trying to make this personal, but these are the stressors that push me into finding this particular place, which was recommended to me by my former business associate, Karina Philippi. And so I was essentially pushed into this kill box by everyone in my life simply because I desired a peaceful resolution with people. And so that is, um, kind of my frustration with this entire process. Now, all that happened while I was learning this new position. I had not been in a civil engineering role since 2012, and even in 2012, I was just an intern. Here, I was a full assistant civil engineer in the construction department, which I had very little familiarity with. However, even with that, my 90-day review had meet standards across the board, which is documented by MWRD. Now, there's assistant, associate, and senior civil engineer in the construction department. I reported to a senior civil engineer. However, when he was not available, the associate civil engineer, Sam Kaufman, would give me direction throughout the day. My normal daily responsibilities at 7 a.m. would be do a site inspection, check in with the contractors, find out the activities that are going on throughout the day, do sewer inspections as necessary, file daily reports, and just be supervising concrete pours as needed. And by and large, I was able to do all the field work without a problem. The office work had to do with a little bit more calculations, I was a little bit more unfamiliar with. And nobody within the first 90 to 100 days of an assistant civil engineer position should be expected to master that. However, because this is my personal belief, because I was um, adequately performing the tasks and meeting standards, what was happening was the associate civil engineer, who was about 6, 7 years younger than me, and also the senior civil engineer and myself were of Indian descent. This gentleman was of Caucasian descent. And again, in Illinois, I have noticed that these cultural differences, especially when intellect comes into play, cause a certain amount of resentment in people that um, carry prejudicial attitudes about it, which is why has a civil rights component to it. And because many engineers are of Indian and Asian descent, I feel like it's important to really broach this topic because there is merit and then there are preconceived notions. And there's a simultaneous expectation to operate with extreme merit and extreme precision while also being deferential to um, nepotistic culture. And that is where the civil rights component of this comes from. And that's why I want this documented. I want to particularly go over my breaking point on January 31st, 2025. Now, remember, I just started in October 10th of 2024. So after my 90-day review, I met standards. And as I continued to ingratiate myself with the department, with the contractors, and you can interview anyone from Michael's Construction, I was the one that actually healed a lot of the relationship between the engineering side and the contractor side of the project. And I was able to help smooth out a lot of the conversations we were having because of my ability to communicate with both sides of the fence. So even if I didn't have all the engineering merit, I believe I brought a ton of positive interaction via communication to the department, which in itself should have made me an asset to the district. On Friday, January 31st, 2025, at the Wheeling Field Office of the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District of Greater Chicago, MWRD, I experienced a severe stress reaction that ultimately led me to leave work early and shortly thereafter to resign. At that time, my direct supervisor, Senior Civil Engineer Sanjay Goel, a licensed civil engineer, was on vacation, and I was being supervised in practice by Associate Civil Engineer Samuel Kaufman, who is not a licensed professional engineer. On that date, Mr. Kaufman assigned me multiple complex tasks, including the payout of multi-million-dollar contracts and additional calculations for future projects. My job was basically take a clipboard, go out in the morning to all the spots in the project where activity was happening, speak with the contractors, get a good grip of what the day's activities were, write that down, put it in a report. Sam and Sanjay would do more of the complex calculations with regards to, you know, how much of this material was needed here and how much of the project should be paid out to the contractor. I had just met these people. So to assign somebody in probation anything more than the basic tasks, especially when they're lower than you on the totem pole, and trying to assign them part of your responsibility, I believe that it was a complexity of work that was not designated for the position. And I believe a lot of this came as a retaliatory tactic because I stood up when the associate civil engineer in question repeatedly um, kind of undermined the authority of the senior civil engineer who was a licensed PE. And I believe that undermining happened because of racial animus. I believe that happened because of a prejudicial attitude, in part empowered by his nepotism. And I think that happens in far too many Midwestern organizations, whether they be academic institutions, law enforcement institutions, local government institutions, engineering, or any corporate structure. And unfortunately, I think I'm in a position where I have to speak out about these types of things, especially as we start to vote in new leadership. Because part of the reason that we're all suffering financially is because of the incompetence we keep putting into authority positions through nepotism and through kind of a social promotion of these preconceived notions which do not serve anybody. So I think that rather than making this go longer and longer, we'll break this up into segments. But I wanted us to start to really address this core issue that has really torn America down since, honestly, since civil rights. Um, they pit model minorities against African Americans and Hispanics. I was solving that problem at MWRD. I made it very clear that I did not want anybody to feel undermined because of my education or experience in school. And I had a great relationship with all the contractors, Black, Mexican, Puerto Rican, of any race, and even the Caucasian contractors, and I was learning how to interact with the engineering side of things on that higher mathematical level as well. But I was pushed so fast, so quickly, and overloaded with complexity so fast that I could not display my competence over a large period of time. That plus being pushed into this environment by another mediocre intellect at Premier Fitness Solutions, who I believe was just, jealous of my autonomy. Um, and frankly, those two nodes, I believe, were, had kind of malicious actors manipulating them at the top. So between being pushed out of my family home to destroy my liquidity growth, being pushed into you saw the kind of retaliatory environment I'm living in now, and then finally the MWRD harassment that I was dealing with, which now you realize is connected with another Pogorzelski node. We're starting to see the conglomerate that is the cause of this situation. Now, I don't want to be a part of anybody's top of anybody's algorithm feed. I have built what I want to build just to be self-sufficient, and I'd like the quickest route to exit in order to be able to do that. So for all of those who are in opposition to Texas Movement International, I urge you to find a solution that makes you feel comfortable, but we will certainly be looking for an off-ramp for ourselves. And rather than letting this escalate into a larger civil rights issue, let's clean it up before it gets too bad. Thank you very much for your time.